Their bodies were radioactive, but the official KGB report states that they froze to death. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident, where 9 experienced hikers encountered something that caused the authorities to lie for decades. Today, we will not just retell this story. We will examine the evidence that most people overlook, analyze the scene of the tragedy through the eyes of a modern criminologist, and piece together the shocking facts. And at the end, I will reveal a detail from the chief investigator's confession that changes everything. What could have gone wrong for the best of the best? February 1959. Northern Urals, 10 people, students and engineers, the elite of Soviet youth, set off on a hike of the highest 3rd category of difficulty. They are led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, an experienced and respected leader. These are not novices, but professionals with dozens of hikes under their belts. Their diaries, found later, are full of life and humor. They joke, sing songs to the guitar, fall in love, and make plans for the future. One of the participants, Yuri Yudin, drops out of the route at the very beginning due to sudden illness. He says goodbye to his friends, unaware that this moment will save his life and make him the only surviving witness to the beginning of their last journey. The remaining 9 people continue on their way, but there is one detail, one ominous omen, which they most likely ignored. The mountain at the foot of which they will set up their last camp is called Kolachahal. In the language of the indigenous Mansi people, translated it means mountain of the dead. But the tourists themselves did not seem to notice anything ominous. Their last entries, made on February 1st, the day they set up their tent, exude calm and weary satisfaction. Here is what they wrote. It is difficult to imagine such comfort anywhere else on the ridge. With the piercing howl of the wind, hundreds of kilometers from any settlements. On that last night, they even published a satirical wall newspaper called Evening Otterton, where they joked about love and science. The last line in the shared diary, written in handwriting trembling from the cold, reads, "The weather was good at first, with a warm westerly wind, but by evening it started snowing. Tired and satisfied, we went to bed. They went to sleep." And no one added anything more to their diaries. On February 12th, the group failed to make contact. At first, no one panicked. Delays are common in such expeditions, but days turned into weeks, and the silence from the mountains became heavy and oppressive. A large-scale search begins, and on February 26th, rescuers spot a dark spot on a deserted slope from the air. It is their tent, but what they see at the site defies all logic. The tent stands on an open, almost flat slope. It is badly damaged, but not by the elements. One of its sides has been neatly cut with a knife. From the inside, a modern investigator would immediately note that these are not the chaotic cuts of a panicked person. These are several methodical vertical cuts made in order to quickly, but in an organized manner, leave the shelter. Inside the tent, there is an eerie, untouched order. Neatly folded backpacks, warm jackets, boots, food, flasks of alcohol, cameras, and even money. Everything is in place. It is as if an invisible force pulled 9 people out of their only island of warmth, forcing them to run to certain death in 30-degree frost. And here is what really still troubles investigators. What they found near the tent contradicts all known laws of human behavior in a critical situation. But the strangest thing was the tracks. 9 chains of tracks stretched from the tent down the slope toward the forest. They ran straight, almost in a row, for nearly 500 meters. The people were walking, not running. Some were wearing boots, others were in socks, and some were even barefoot in the deep snow. This completely contradicts any version of panic. It looks like an organized retreat. It's as if they calmly walked away from the threat they clearly saw in front of them. right by the tent. The tracks led the searchers to the edge of the forest, where an even more gruesome discovery awaited them. Under a huge cedar tree were the remains of a tiny fire and the first two bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko. They were stripped down to their underwear, their hands burned. The branches on the cedar tree itself were broken off at a height of up to 5 meters. A criminal investigator would say that they had desperately tried to climb the tree. But why? To keep warm, or to hide from something that was watching them from the darkness of the forest. 3 more bodies are found between the cedar tree and the tent. Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Their frozen bodies are statues of despair. Their poses suggest that they tried with their last ounce of strength to crawl back up to their abandoned shelter. They froze halfway to safety. The official cause of death for the first 5 was hypothermia, a tragic accident. The case would have been closed if the rest had not been found in May, when the snow began to melt. What they found turned the investigation from a tragedy into an inexplicable nightmare. The last 4 bodies were found in a deep ravine, under 4 meters of snow. And this discovery turned the case into an unsolvable mystery. Unlike the first victims, these people did not die from the cold. They suffered horrific, fatal injuries. Nikolai Thibeaux-Brignol had a severe skull fracture. Semyon Zolotarev and Lyudmila Dubinina had multiple symmetrical rib fractures. The medical examiner wrote in his report that the force of the impact was comparable to that of a person being hit by a car at high speed. But here is an impossible, shocking detail. There was not a single bruise or abrasion on their bodies. Their bones were broken, but their skin remained intact. It was as if they had been crushed by an invisible, colossal force from within. And the final, gruesome detail of this nightmare. Lyudmila Dubinina's tongue was missing, and it had been removed while she was still alive. But that's not all. A subsequent examination showed that the clothing of some of the victims found in the ravine was radioactive. Not fatally so, but the level was several times higher than normal. Radiation, internal injuries without external damage, a tent neatly cut open from the inside. These facts did not fit into the frozen to death version. The mystery seemed unsolvable, an avalanche. But the tent was on a gentle slope and the tracks weren't covered. An attack by local Mansi hunters, but nothing was stolen and the injuries didn't look like they were caused by weapons. An attack by wild animals? But then why were there no animal tracks or lacerations? Every rational theory fell apart. The case was hastily closed with an absurd statement. The tourists died as a result of natural forces that humans were unable to overcome. All materials were classified for decades, but years later, when the Soviet Union collapsed, something unexpected happened. The chief investigator in the case, Lev Ivanov, the man who personally led the investigation and saw all the evidence with his own eyes, broke his silence. And what he said completely destroys all the official versions. And here is the detail I promised at the beginning. He not only revealed what he had concealed, but also explained why he agreed to lie. And this reason changes everything. Ivanov admitted that he and other witnesses, including military personnel, saw fireballs and glowing spheres in the sky that night and in the days that followed. But his superiors from the regional party committee ordered him to remove these statements from the case file and immediately classify everything as secret. The reason why he, a prosecutor's investigator, agreed to this was simple. I was afraid. I realized that I was dealing with something that involved the military, and any insistence would cost me my career or my life. That's it. The chief investigator himself confirmed it. The official version is a cover-up. Mysterious lights in the sky, radiation, orders to remain silent, and the fear of high-ranking officials. All of this points to secret weapons testing, a failed missile launch, or something even stranger that the Soviet government wanted to hide at all costs? The answer remains buried under the snow of Dead Man's Mountain, but now you know that it wasn't just a tragic accident. It was an encounter with something that forced 9 strong men to choose a slow death from cold rather than remain near the source of the horror. And that mystery is far more terrifying than any official version. What do you think really happened on that mountain? Write your version in the comments. I'll read everyone. By the way, there's one more detail I didn't mention. One of the group's cameras with film inside. What did the tourists capture in the last hours of their lives? If you want me to release a second part with an analysis of these images, let me know by getting 10,000 likes on this video. And to make sure you don't miss this and other investigations into mysteries that are not officially explained, subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot of unsolved mystery ahead.